Hello and welcome back to another episode of Craven Some Raven. And in this episode, god damn it, I just recorded the whole episode, but my mic kept hitting up against the zipper on my jacket and it was just unlistenable. I started listening to it as I was gonna upload it and I was like, oh fuck, does this go away? And I just skipped ahead. Nope, it keeps going on. So hopefully that shit is not going on right now. I zipped up my jacket, so it won't be hitting along. So god damn it, I wasn't that salty, but you know what? Now I am. Because we got all of, you know, this past Sunday watching football. God damn it, there's no Ravens. What's going on? And we are now in full off-season mode. So I guess we'll just talk about the draft stuff and all that fun stuff. But man, what a bummer. Did you enjoy watching on Sunday? I know I didn't. So, I mean, let's just start talking about everything because we got the Senior Bowl, we got the Pro Bowl, and we got the draft. The one of my favoriteest things to talk about in the whole football year. I mean, football is now a year-round thing. Everybody loves the draft. Everybody thinks they're GM, as I do. What's best for their team? We got free agency, all that fun stuff. So we're going to talk about a little bit of everything. It's very early on in my draft process. I've only looked at a few players, and even that didn't even do a full deep dive onto them. Just haven't been in the mood, as you could say. I.e. that this past Sunday, just no Ravens football. What's going on? But since we got the Senior Bowl coming up and the Pro Bowl, it's going to be a good time for the Ravens organization to maybe get some free agency involved. Look at some players in college. It's going to be a good time. Good, fun old time. So let's just start talking about things. I don't know what to go with first, but let's talk about the Pro Bowl because the Ravens coaching staff is going to be coaching the AFC side in the Pro Bowl. And the only reason I want to talk about this is because it's a great recruiting technique, right? When you get to play against all of these different players, a lot of the great players in this league are Pro Bowlers, so they're all going to be there. They're going to be at practice, and they're going to get a chance to meet and talk with John Harbaugh. What are their feelings about things, about the game or whatever. But they'll get to talk football with the Ravens coaching staff, and hopefully, when some of these great players become free agents on their own squad, and they're choosing where they want to go, weighing the options of money versus fit, versus location, all that stuff, and they look and they have an offer from the Ravens, and they go, hey, I did talk to John Harbaugh. I liked what he had to say. I could see being coached by him, being in that organization, or playing with Lamar Jackson because Lamar Jackson is also in the Pro Bowl, and I think Lamar Jackson doing Lamar Jackson type things, I think that's going to be an even greater recruiting technique. A lot of the great players around this league are going to see what he does at practice, going to see how he plays, as a quarterback, as a runner, and they're going to be doing the, ooh, did you see that? They're going to be doing that all freaking week with Lamar Jackson at QB. So I have a feeling Lamar Jackson's cut moves specifically are going to be what brings hopefully some free agents to Baltimore. And, talking about free agency and all that fun stuff, we don't know what's going to happen. We got some players that could be signed, could be gone. What does that mean for the Ravens in the draft? It's all connected because, my biggest hopes for this Ravens squad is that, and really any year, I hope Eric DeCosta, through free agency, plugs all the holes so that if there was no draft, the Ravens would be fine, right? You find all of the players that you need. They decipher where their holes are. They decide, hey, we got a hole at wide receiver. We got a hole at edge rusher. We got a hole at inside linebacker. Let's fill those positions with veteran guys. And then when the draft comes, we're not pigeonholed into drafting a certain way. It allows them to move around the board a little bit like they always like to do, get some more picks, do all that sort of stuff. Because if everything's plugged, then it's best player available. Obviously, there's more weight with positions. You think, oh, maybe we still need some help here, help there. But, you want them to go into it like with a clean slate. Like, hey, we don't have a team. Or like, everything's good. So every player we get in the draft is just a cherry on top if they were to ball out. Obviously that's still the case. That's the big question. That's what makes the draft so exciting. But hopefully they go into the draft thinking that their roster is completed, right? That should be the goal. The roster be completed before the draft. So that way, anything they do is just, like I said, cherry on top. So, there is a lot of questions in the offseason with the different free agents. I think I might want to save that, I guess, for another video talking about what I think the Ravens should do with all these, pending free agents, and then maybe some non-Ravens, free agents that they maybe want to bring in. But I haven't really done a huge look and deep dive into any of that. I haven't even really done a deep dive into the draft yet. Still just getting back into the swing of things. But this week I think a great chance to make some headway on that. Speaking of like the Senior Bowl and stuff, a lot of prospects coming out of there. I know that the Ravens, they love their Senior Bowl guys, right? How many guys have they drafted from the Senior Bowl? I don't really know. I don't have the list in front of me, but I remember like Brandon Williams was one of those guys. Someone else was one of those guys. I don't have the list in front of me, but I know they do enjoy a good Senior Bowl ball out. Right, and because the Senior Bowl, that's guys who weren't the number one guy on their team. Maybe they didn't get a good look during the season. Maybe they just weren't used right. And at least this way, maybe they're a small school guy, and at least this way, they're going up against all of their fellow draft counterparts, right? So you can go look at the tape, how do they play. All of it means nothing if they're trash against better competition, right? So they go into the Senior Bowl, and if they ball out, that's a good look, because a lot of guys who have great Senior Bowls have good NFL careers. Maybe not NFL careers, but at least they make some headway. They make your team, and they can contribute for a couple years on a cheap deal. Like me personally, I wasn't big on Deebo Samuel, but he balled out in the Senior Bowl, and what do you know? Look at what he's doing now with San Francisco. Obviously, San Francisco, they got a great scheme, Shanahan and all that fun stuff. But he did better than I expected. Even after seeing him, ball out at the Senior Bowl, still thinking like, oh no, I'm gonna trust my eyes. I'm gonna trust my judgment from what I saw in the tape. And obviously, I was very wrong on that. So it's I think. I got to put more of a stock in this type of a game, or in this, I guess, more so practices. All the one-on-ones we get to see. Really get to see guys, step up and really show their craft one-on-one. So I think the Senior Bowl, very important. I think the Ravens have drafted a Senior Bowl guy like every single year. That's what it seems like. So hopefully they find some guys that they feel are worthy enough of getting drafted and bring those guys in. I think that'll be great. I love the Senior Bowl. Love seeing those guys. I love some good tenacity in my players, so I'm going to be looking for that. A lot of the interviews, I like the interview process, because I think, when it comes to like covering the draft, I guess I could say that's what I'm doing. I mean, I think half the battle, of these prospects, like, oh, how did everybody miss on them? It's like, well, most people didn't get to talk to them. Most people didn't get to interview these guys. And that's why a lot of these draft pundits, it's like, oh, how did everybody miss on this guy? It's like, well, no one fucking talked to him. I don't really got behind closed doors and really got to meet and decipher who this person is, as a person, right? Who is this NFL player, like, as a person? I think that's half the battle. The mental makeup is, I think a huge part of it. And I don't get any of that. And that's kind of the bummer when it comes to this whole draft process, is that I'm going off of the tape, right? So, like my whole process, if I'm gonna talk about, what I look for in players and how I decide who I like, my whole process is finding a name, however it may be, people talking about them, just seeing a list of players and then looking them up. First and foremost, first thing I watch is their highlight tape, and I know that is not the end all be all. That is just for me to see where your ceiling is as a college player. In college, where was your ceiling? What were your best plays? What is the possible best we can expect from you as a player? Like, oh, we might get this crazy play. We might get this crazy play. That would be awesome. But if I like what I see there, I don't see anything crazy. I want to see some really high highs. That's what I'm looking for in that situation. If they have a great highlight tape, I will most likely put them on the next list, the next tier of my draft process, which is, go ahead and watch their tape. right? Watch the rest of them. If you don't have a great highlight tape, I probably won't even put you in that category. And that's, I'm sure there's a flaw in that system, but this is just the way I do things. So I go from watching the highlight tape. If I like that, then I go ahead and watch their tape. So first and foremost, it's whatever I can find, really. I'm using YouTube, so I don't get every single game. I can't watch everything that these players do. But what I watch for is, it depends on the position, really, but if it's on offense, it's like, are they going to this guy on third down? How do they look in their breaks? When they do get the ball, is it efficient? Like when they have, when they do stuff, is it good for the team, really? Like, does the team want the ball in your hands? Like, is that a bad idea? I mean, because sometimes you look and it's like, what are these college coaches doing, man? Like, you look to last year, Ole Miss, they had DK Metcalf, A.J. Brown, and even Dawson Knox, their tight end. They had three guys who had great rookie years, all three of these guys, but yet they were a trash team. And I remember even talking about it last year. What is Ole Miss doing? They have these guys like A.J. Brown. I kept saying, like, why are you making him run this stupid fucking go 5 yards and stop? Why are they making him do that? Give him a real fucking route. Give him a slant route. And then we see in the NFL, they give him slant routes and he balls out again. I was right about A.J. Brown. Wrong about Debo, but right about A.J., But I mean, it was, so you have to look at that. And you have to see that. Like, is this player even being used the right way? And so all of that goes into everything I look at. But, so highlight tapes, do I like them? Yes. Once I pop on the tape, do they pop off, right? Do you hear their name being called whenever you watch their games? Are they the big player on their team? Do they produce? How does the other team play them? All these things, it's situation by situation. That's why it's kind of hard to put a overall criteria out of it. And really, it's just the style at which you play. That's one of the most important things to me, because, and I can't point to one specific thing, really. Maybe if I'm talking about specific positions and stuff, and I'll probably get into that later, so maybe I'll be able to, dive deeper into what I'm talking about now. But when it comes to what I'm looking for in a player, obviously you need to make the plays, but I think in the matter in which you do it, that's one of the things I'm looking for. If you got some swag, you got some moxie, I want the Ravens to draft you. And one thing that I'm going to be looking at more this year than I did last year is the big games, right? A rivalry game, a homecoming game, a bowl game. Guys who, even if, they may ball out in the other games, but it's like, if they don't ball out in their bowl game or in their rivalry game, I'm not going to put them as high as, I'd be like, oh man, this guy's good. Here's the last test. How did he do in the bowl game? And if he doesn't perform well, it's like, ooh, I'm really looking for that. That was always a concern, especially last year. I did look at that, but I didn't put it high on my list of things you need to do. But after the way the Ravens season has ended these past 2 years, in the big game, in the first playoff game that they're playing, and they lose. So I'm looking for guys who ball out in the big situation. Guys who when the chips are down, when the lights are out, when the lights are on, they perform big. They play their biggest on the biggest stage. That's what I'm looking for. It can't be the end all be all, right? You can have a bad game, and obviously it'll be a situation by situation thing, and that's kind of thing. It's tough to talk about because everything is so situational, and trusting kind of your eyes in each and every situation. It's like, oh well, he got beat here, but really, if you look at it, the circumstances, it wasn't right. Like, it was this, there's that, so all of that I just take into account. But most of it, actually everything, is the eye test. And like I said, I can only go off the tape. I don't get to speak to these guys. I don't get to, interview their high school coaches. I know none of that. And really, that is half the battle. You hear like stories and stuff. It's like, oh well, man, if I would have known that, if I would have known that he he had a chance to go to some big prep school, but he decided to go ahead and stay with the small high school, his local high school, just because of that's where he's from, and he's going to put the name on his back or whatever. Going to do the hey, I'm sticking here, sticking with my guys kind of thing. That is very important to me. It's the mental makeup, and that's why some of these players like, oh, they're so talented. Why were they a bust? Like, well, they didn't have the mental makeup. Obviously, they didn't interview right, or maybe they did, but eye to eye or something. Speaking to them as a person. Maybe they're not ready for the type of success that the NFL will bring them, or the money, or any of that stuff. And it's really half the battle, and I don't get to see any of that. But that's kind of my process. It was nothing crazy. It gave away no revelations like, oh, no way, oh my God, why you do that? No, it's just very simple, very straightforward. But that's it's things I'm looking for. I'll break down, giving like top tens by position. I think last year the way I did it, I did like a running back for each round for the Ravens. Identifying if there's a player worthy of a pick. So say with running backs, like, okay, is there a running back that I can see the Ravens drafting in the first round that would be worth it, with the values there and the talent is there. And, I'll probably do that. So each one of those episodes, I'll probably do a deep dive into what I'm looking for in a player. But with that being said, I mean, we'll get to that. I'll do all that. We have until April to finalize everything. Gonna be doing some mock drafts, all that fun stuff. Haven't done a deep dive into a lot of players. Really only done like a few. And they're all first-round guys that I've seen mocked to the Ravens, some guys that I do like. And so, speaking on some of those players, I have 3 guys that, as of right now, I would like the Ravens to draft. Those 3 guys: Henry Ruggs, Kenneth Murray, and Curtis Weaver. We'll start. Henry Ruggs, wide receiver, Alabama. The way I've been hearing people talk about him now, though, and how fast he might possibly run, he might not make it. And all 3 of those guys that I just mentioned, I have a feeling that at least one of them is going to make it all the way to 28. So we will have a chance to draft, I think, at least one of those guys. And, there's people who fall that I wouldn't expect. I haven't really dug into the tape on yet. But these are the guys that I've heard that the Ravens, people mocking to the Ravens and stuff. So I, decided to look at them. And those are the 3 guys that I came away liking. But Henry Ruggs, I mean, just a speed threat. I think we really only need one thing on offense, and that is another dominant, fast wide receiver. I feel a lot of Ravens Nation would say, hey, we need a big possession guy. But I don't see it that way. I think speed kills in this game. And I understand. I kind of felt that way last year. Like, oh, you got this guy, so now you need this type of guy, right? You have a big wide receiver, so you get a small guy, right? I know the classic thing is you need, or your wide receiver core should be like a basketball team, right? You got a power forward, you got a shooter, a shooting guard, you got a point guard. It doesn't matter. Like you need every single style, but I don't think you do. I think, seeing what the Kansas City Chiefs have done, what they've done at wide receiver with all the speed that they have, it really does change the game. Because defenses do the same things that offenses do. It's like, oh, you need a this type of wide receiver, you need a that type of wide receiver. It's like, well, so conversely, the defense, hey, we need this type of corner, we need that type of corner, because we need a corner to defend against every single type of wide receiver, right? And so if you come in with an already bona fide, I think, speed threat in Marquise Brown, who I think could be our number 1 receiver, I think dominated, and he's going to have a great fucking year next year. I think, I'm going to try to get him in every single one of my fantasy drafts because, goddamn, I think Marquise Brown is going to ball out next year. So the Ravens, they have a bona fide speed threat. We already have that. So let's double down. Let's double down on that type of player. I think you go heavy on offensive, defensive line, right? You get big guys there, but everywhere else, if you're not on the line of scrimmage, you need to be the fastest guy. That's what I want the Ravens to do. Get the fastest guys. Obviously, there's other stuff involved with that. That's not the only sole thing, but I mean, I just think a track team, right, around Lamar Jackson, that can only help. Speed and speed and speed. They will not be able to stop us. And so for me, Henry Ruggs is that guy. And when you're looking at his catch percentage and how many people he made miss, I don't have the raw numbers in front of me, but I remember hearing about it, like PFF. And I do look at PFF stuff, not so much when they go grading, but when it comes to their raw data, because I know a lot of people, they don't like PFF stuff, but when it comes to them collecting all the raw data, that stuff you can take at face value. Their grades, I don't think you can, because they kind of see things differently than I think a lot of other people. But when it comes to their raw data collection, like, percentages or missed tackles after the catch, that's some raw data that you can hang your hat on. You can say, okay, well, if Henry Ruggs is good at that, if he gets more chances, most likely he's gonna be good in that department, right? And I just love Henry Ruggs as a speed threat, not to mention a returner at Alabama as well. When it comes to the wide receiver position specifically, that is something that I'm looking for. I think the Ravens would do well to have an improved punt returner, kick returner, just a return specialist, and guys who have done that. He may not be the guy, he could be beaten in training camp, but I want my wide receivers to, if they have that, that is a bonus in my book, because I think the Ravens need help there. And I really do like Henry Ruggs at that spot, just another speed threat to really put defenses in a bind. I think he'd be a great fit for the Ravens, and it'd be just one more fit, I think the last kind of piece that the Ravens need. Like I said, they still need offensive line help. That's always a good idea, maybe running back or whatever, but as of right now, the way the team's built, I think if we had one more speed threat, we would have been even more successful this year. With that being said, man, I mean, I think like wide receiver, it's not our biggest need, but the fact is that the wide receiver position, it just gets drafted high like that, especially if you're a speed threat the way that he is going to be drafted high. He might not even make it to the Ravens, but I hope he does fall a little bit and make his way to the Ravens, and the Ravens can pick up a great fucking player and kick returner. But like I said, sometimes the draft can be weird in certain ways. He may fall, he may get picked top 10. We really just don't know how other teams are going to go. Obviously, the process will kind of, illuminate some of that stuff, but teams always draft someone you're like, who? They drafted who? Right? It's like I remember even last year at the first round, I covered the draft all year, and it's like they drafted that guy? Come on, man. Put me in a front office, because that was a trash decision. Trash decision. Jeez, say that 10 times fast, you fucks. Yeah, man, another guy, like I said, Kenneth Murray, seeing a lot of hype. A lot of Ravens fans on Twitter are liking Kenneth Murray, and I like that because I think he would be the next Ravens great linebacker. Maybe not great, but I think he is that dude. I love watching Kenneth Murray play. Anytime you watch an Oklahoma game and you heard some cracking on the field, it was because of Kenneth Murray. The only downside I saw is that he does like to tackle high, which leads to a lot of that cracking sound, helmet-to-helmet contact. But it's not like he's getting bullied. That's just his style. So sometimes you like to see him go a little bit low, but he's fast as hell, gets to his spot, very instinctual, very good at identifying when to go, very good at being a quarterback spy. Saw him do it multiple times, going up against all of that Big 12 competition, all the fast and speedy offenses that they had to deal with in the Big 12, so we're dealing with a defensive player who's seen a lot of fast offenses, so that can only help you on the defensive side of the ball. He knows how to get to his spot, and what I was talking about earlier, his getting to the quarterback, his spying ability. So many times I saw him, he picked the perfect time to go after the quarterback, where he drops back a little bit, sits in his zone, and I guess his assignment, like, hey, if the quarterback breaks out, you go ahead and get him. And a couple times where I saw him break on the quarterback, I was like, damn, he timed it fucking perfectly and beat the quarterback to his spot. And really just sideline to sideline type guy, and that's something we need. I think I like what LJ Fort. We did re-sign him. I do like Josh Bynes. I do like Peanut, but we don't know if Peanut's going to be there. Josh Bynes is old. LJ Fort is a journeyman. We need a bona fide young rookie type guy to come in and kind of solidify the middle of that defense. And I think Kenneth Murray can be that guy. Kenneth Murray, he's got sticky hands on defense. I mean, when he gets his hands on you, he is going to stick to you. I mean, since he likes to go high, I imagine if he ever meets in the hole with Derrick Henry might run him over. But you know what? He is going to be dragging Kenneth Murray down the field and it would slow him up enough to the point where, the pursuit can go ahead and get him. He's got those sticky hands, man. He gets those paws on you, and you ain't going anywhere. He is going to stick on you like glue. He is that cat. Sometimes he tackles like a cat. The way he breaks down, he's got his paws out, Anyways, he's a puma. Or a jaguar, or a panther. I don't know. Sex panther. 60% of the time, it works every time. But Kenneth Murray, he's more like double sex panther, 100% of the time, it works every time. So I really liked his game, and I like that Ravens fans see it too. Definitely a huge fan of him. He is that guy. He's got that dog mentality, put his nose in it. Love seeing that from him. Big fan of him. So... and it would definitely, I think, solidify the inside of our defense. But the bigger position that I think is a need on defense is an edge rusher. Not a pass rusher, an edge rusher. Pass rushers, they leave lanes open. And with the way the NFL is going, with how mobile everyone is going to be, every single quarterback coming out of this draft is mobile, and for the foreseeable future, everyone is going to have running ability. Or at least if there's a lane, they're going to take it. Every single one of these quarterbacks is going to be that way. That's the way the NFL is going. So I don't want speed rushers. I don't want guys who can't stick in their lane, who don't leave lanes open. I want big dudes who can stack up the tackle and then get to the quarterback. And that is Curtis Weaver. Speaking at PFF, I guess he was second in, win percentage. And that's something that, like I said, you can take that at face value. He is successful. And then watching his tape, man, sometimes Boise State, they would put him out like in open space, like off the line, almost out in like a quarterback type position. It's like, Boise, what are you doing? That is not the type of guy he is. He has a big belly. He is a fat man, but he's quick and explosive. So he's a large man. What are you doing putting him out in space? It's like, God, what are you fucking idiots at Boise? What are you doing? Huh? What are you doing? But this guy is a baller. I could see him falling in the draft. I've heard some people put him pretty highly, ranking him pretty highly. I'm hoping his combine for performance, hopefully he's a little bit slower and he is able to drop. He won't have the outstanding athleticism, right? But he plays on the defensive line where you don't need outstanding athleticism. You need strength and hand-fighting ability and production. And he's got all three of those things. And as a first-round guy at a position of need, because we don't know what's going to go down with Matthew Judon. I know he's going to chase that bag. And if Matthew Judon goes, who do we have? Tyus Bowser. McPhee's going to be coming back, which is great. But, who else, right? I did like what Jalen Ferguson did, but we need like two more guys, even if Matthew Judon stays. Maybe if Judon stays, maybe we only need one guy, one good guy, but I mean, we're going to need two guys, in the draft to say like, hey, let's just double up on this position. Hey, whoever plays better, that's the guy, right? But I mean, I really like the way he plays, tenacity, ferociousness. He is big enough where he stacks up a guy, where he stays in his lane. He can set the edge. And I love seeing that. Love seeing the hustle from him. He's an excellent player. Playing at Boise didn't go up against the biggest of competition, but production is production. I mean, Jalen Ferguson, he breaks a single season sack record in the NCAA. And he had a pretty decent rookie season. Saw some positives from him. Definitely needed to get in the weight room once again. Probably hit that rookie wall that people talk about. But you know what? I loved what I saw from Curtis Weaver, and I would be 100% happy if the Ravens drafted him. And honestly, if they drafted any three of those guys, as of right now, very early in the process, just getting back into the hyped about football kind of scenario. Because like I said, I mean, Ravens weren't playing. Still a bummer watching championship weekend, and the Ravens aren't in it. Total bullshit. But you know what? It is what it is. We're starting to get back into things. We have all the way until April, my man. So I will definitely be coming out with my positional rankings for the Ravens and all that fun stuff. We're going to be talking about a lot of prospects. So as right now, those are my first round guys I'd be happy with. Going to be doing some mock drafts and stuff, but we will get to that when we do. I mean, just doing a little quick overview, getting back into the swing of things with the podcast. This is the second time recording it through, so hopefully everything was a little bit smoother. Got my voice lubed up and got my mind lubed up, not with alcohol, but just got it lubed up. I got to talk straight for 40 minutes or so, even though it's only been 30 minutes. So this will probably end up being a short one, but we are getting back into the swing of things. If there's a player you want me to look at and talk about, I will definitely do that. If you hit me in the comments on YouTube, or if you hit me up on Twitter and ask me about it, guys, because there's some guys that I already do like very early on in the process. There's a corner out of was it La Tech, the same Kenneth Dixon. Yeah, there's a cornerback out of Louisiana Tech that I really do like, who's not a first round cornerback. We don't even really need cornerback, but the way he plays, I love his style, love his attitude, love his swag on the field. When it comes to defenders, I like me some swag. And that is a big aspect to me. When it comes to defense, you need those dogs. You need that dog mentality on defense. And when you play with swag, you got that dog mentality. There's that guy, I forget his name. There's also one of my favorite sleepers early on so far is wide receiver / quarterback Malcolm Perry from Navy. Coming out of that triple option system, I've talked about it a little bit on that episode where I went on a huge rant about bringing the triple option into the NFL, which I still think should be the case. But we still got Greg Roman, we still got all of our coaches coming back, so that will be a help for Lamar Jackson, all that fun stuff. But a crazy guy like Malcolm Perry, extra shifty, can run, can throw, can catch, can juke, can do it all. Just a smaller feller out of Navy, so he's another guy I like, and I'm sure there's some other guys that I will be talking about. A lot of good wide receivers, so maybe we miss on Henry Ruggs. There's another guy that we can pick up, like Rager, or who's that other guy? Anyways, we'll get to all these prospects. Their names will be mentioned. I went over, how I kind of like to look at all the draft prospects, what my process is. It's nowhere perfect. It will change, I'm sure, even this offseason. So with that being said, guys, I think that might do it for this episode. Just a little bit of preview, talking about a few things here, a few things there. Nothing crazy on the agenda. We're getting back into the swing of things. Definitely going to be doing at least one podcast a week, maybe more. I'm not too sure how I want to do these, how they're going to lay out, because last year was the first year I've done it, so I definitely want to, improve and do things better than I did last year. So I've learned a lot, this whole year doing this, but now we are officially fully in the off season, going balls deep into it. We will talk about all the free agents that we have that are around the league who want the Ravens to get, all that fun stuff, especially as stuff comes out, rumors and all that fun stuff. So I'm still rambling on, so let's just end this bad boy. Thank you for listening. I will be talking later, and you Ravens.